What are your opinions on violence in the media?
Violence in the media, mainstream media at the moment, I don't think is very explicit. I think it's well controlled, and I think there's enough control out there by the news corporations and news media that doesn't exploit necessarily violent acts. What concerns me more are the unmaintained, unmanaged sites and areas where a 13, 14, 15-year-old child, young person can easily go and find very explicit, sometimes often criminal acts.
Yeah.
And that's there, and that's really dangerous if people see that as normal.
Yeah, so obviously with the kind of revolution of gaming as well, you see games such as Grand Theft Auto, which has been banned in Australia. So, what do you think the effects of the violence that youths may see in those games, what kind of effect would they have in terms of, crime?
This is a often commented on debate. Violent scenes in a highly visual game like Gran Turismo or Call of Duty or whatever it is, where you're literally blowing someone's head off. I think even a primary school pupil, most primary school pupils know the difference between this is made up fantasy, it is not real, it is not a real person that you are hurting, and the reality. Does it mean that if you play Call of Duty or Gran Turismo you're going to go out, steal a car and shoot someone? It's highly unlikely. Does it desensitise you to extreme acts of violence? Quite possibly. However, I'll go back to my first point, which was there are other areas and sites and places to go where you can actually see real people committing real extreme violent acts. So the most commonly seen, the most recent would be the IS videos, which if you wanted to, I haven't even wanted to, but I know young people can go there and they can see that sort of like one man beheading another.
Yeah.
That is a million miles away from someone in made-up name in Call of Duty jumping out of a helicopter and trying to shoot someone with a sniper rifle. One is holy fantasy, and one is grim reality. I don't think the two are linked.
Okay.
Those people will be committing those acts whether Gran Turismo existed or not.
So what do you think should be done about those in particular cases?
The actual extreme acts of violence,
Yeah.
the reality.
Should they be shown?
Well, it's not a case of being shown. They're not being broadcast, because they're not being owned by any broadcaster and saying, here, this is a site. It's simply uploaded by people who want people to view those images and view those scenes. No government supports it, and concerning the web, there is no police or control.
But I mean, they must have some control in the sense that they can block sites.
True, it's very true. The issue there is that you can block sites that emanate from your own country, but it's very difficult to block sites globally. So it's quite easy. Numerous people, even here, can change IP addresses and basically change the identity of a computer to make sure it thinks it's in Peru rather than the UK. So yes, you can do things to mitigate, but with the advent of the internet and video technology, and also the instant nature of being able to put stuff out there, we've always had war, but we've always known that people have used in medieval times scabbards and saws to lop people's heads off, but it was never videoed, it was never seen, and it was never promoted. So I'm not sure how we can stop that. You can put safety orders on games, like Gran Turismo's 18 or Call of Duty's 18 or whatever it is, but you can't. I'm not sure how you stop Twitter feeds linking to websites with extreme violence. And the only way through it, I think, is educating young people to know that this is not normal, this is abnormal behaviour, and it's not to be supported in any way, shape or form.
Okay, well, that concludes our questions. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
What are your opinions on violence in the media?
Violence in the media seems to have increased and seems to be more prevalent in the media than it was perhaps when I was young and then in previous generations. It does seem to be, maybe there's the same amount of violence in the media today, but the type of violence is becoming a bit more extreme, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we're talking about guns, you know, all that kind of violence that would result in death as well. So, you know, when looking at games, and like such as Grand Theft Auto, you know, what would you say is like the biggest like effect of the game that might have on a child or its viewer?
I think it's important to note that the majority of people, 99% of people who play video games like GTA, don't go out to commit crime. They don't go out to commit crime. There is, I believe, a moral compass within everybody, and most young people are able to separate reality with that fantasy world, and that is pure escapism for them. However, there is a small minority of people who I think might already be predisposed to violence, and it's those people who you have to be careful of, because once they're being shown and modelled violence in games and in films and in the news, it might trigger something in them.
Okay, so sorry.
But I think we have to be careful that saying that games are going to make everybody violent, when I don't think that's true. And I think sometimes people try to blame things like violent games when perhaps there are other factors in young people's lives which is causing them to be violent.
Yeah, so looking at the minority groups, you know, the small individuals, what would you say that could be done, you know, to stop them? You know, do you think there should be limits on the amount of violence that should be shown in a game or something?
It's difficult because I think at the moment games are rated by the British Board Film Classification. They classify games too. But it's so easy, isn't it, for young people to ask a brother or their parents or friends to buy these games which are rated 18, rated 15, to buy these games for them. And I think parents aren't particularly well informed about game certification. And I think some children are being exposed to violence which probably is too extreme for them. And the worry is that that just normalises violence for them, and that perhaps they're not having the reactions that other people would, that reaction of shock to violence, they're not having it because they're already used to it, exposed to it. Now I think that is upsetting. And I'm not going to say those people can go out and start killing and murdering people, but it is a concern that people are being desensitised to violence. That is a worry. What do I think people should do about this? I think parents need to be informed. Need to be better informed about game classification, particularly. They need to be better informed about what's going on in their games, and they should be checking what content there are on games, and before they let their children play them.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, and it's been great talking to you. So what are your opinions about violence in the media?
I guess when I hear the phrase violent media, initially my thought is of like video games and stuff, so especially because I've got a year 10 tutor group, and I know when new video games have come out because it's all they talk about, and it's all about who they've killed, you know, it's all to do with fighting and stuff, and that is their topic of conversation. So it does worry me because that is all they talk about, and they talk about it as though it's a normal thing. You know, oh, I got this many kills, oh, you know, headshot worth more, stuff like that, and it does concern me because to them that's totally normal, and for me it seems a bit, you know, that's how they spend their evenings, which to me, I'm not sure that's a great thing. Obviously as well, I think we've got potential problems now with things like Facebook, where you've got this the videos that just automatically play, and you know, you're scrolling down your newsfeed and there'll be a video that starts playing, and it could be about anything. And I was talking to, again, some of my tutor group, and there was something that somebody had posted on Facebook which was a Saudi Arabian woman just being beheaded, and that was just something that somebody decided to post. And actually you don't get any say now whether you press play to watch it, so you don't get the choice now whether you want to watch it, because it will just start playing automatically. And we actually had a conversation about that, because again, some of them were quite shocked by what they'd seen, and others were like, no, but that's just normal because you see those kind of videos all the time now. And I think for me it does shock me, because at that age I don't think I'd have ever seen anything like that, but to them that's something normal, and they've become almost desensitized to it. So yeah, I think there are definitely concerns that I have with regards to violence in the media.
Okay, so in terms of that, do you think that could possibly lead to violence and crime rates increasing within like the younger generation?
I don't know whether that, I think there would have to be some research done into whether that is the case, but certainly from my point of view, it seems to be something that has become normalised, so something that these students, especially my tutor group, I know for a fact that they are less shocked by. So maybe, I'm not sure if it would lead to them doing it themselves, but I would, from what I've seen, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe they saw it happen in real life and they would be less shocked by it, and therefore, if it did happen, they would think, oh well, it's not a big deal because I've seen it happen, and so it becomes less of a big deal almost.
Yeah, so for that reason, do you think violent media should be stopped, or?
I think it's difficult because I think people have the right to see what goes on, but then again, I think people should be given a choice. So, like I was saying about the thing on Facebook where it just automatically plays, I think that's a massive problem. I think people should be given the choice whether they want to watch that kind of thing, and especially for young people, I think they need to be aware that this is something shocking, because the fact they see it so often, I think that's the problem. The fact that they do see it so often, they don't necessarily have the context behind it. The violent video games, I think that's something that is going to cause problems down the line. But again, I think people have the right to do those things, but it's the fact that you've got it for such young people. Do they really know what they're seeing? Are they really aware of the impact of what they're playing? So I think, and I know that some of them do have like ratings, so you can't actually buy it unless you're 18. However, I know that kids do get hold of it just by asking somebody else to buy it. Sometimes their parents buy it from them, not really fully knowing what the content is. But it's difficult. I think there needs to be a balance, but it's difficult to to find out where that would be.
Okay, well that concludes our questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.